Petra, Israel's secret hiding place during the Great Tribulation. Petra means rock in Greek. It's a deserted city carved out of solid, reddish-colored rock and located south of the Dead Sea in Jordan. It's about 170 miles by road southeast from Jerusalem. In antiquity, it was known as Mount Seir. You might have heard of that. Or the fortified city of the Edomites. In later times, the Nabateans settled in that mountain stronghold and called their capital Petra. That's the name we use today. The city is situated in a deep cleft valley with rocky ravines and steep cliffs. The remains of a spectacular, colored city consisting of temples, caves, and tombs. I mean, it is really something to see. It's also a fortress. It has its own underground water supply. The only entrance to the city is through a narrow gorge almost a mile in length, which can easily be guarded and even blocked if necessary, thus rendering Petra a very safe refuge, and an almost impossible place to get to on the ground. It also contains hundreds of caverns, caves, tombs, passages. So is Petra the place where the remnant of Israel will flee to escape the Antichrist? Is there biblical evidence for this? We're going to look at it today. In Psalm 108, we see this very unusual passage about Petra. Who will bring me to the fortified city? Who will lead me to Edom? Have you not rejected us, O God? Do you not go out, O God, with our armies? Oh, grant us help against our foe. For vain is the salvation of man. With God we shall do valiantly. It is He who will tread down our foes. Psalm 108, 10 through 13. The fortified city of Edom, as we said, is Petra. So this psalm is discussing a time when God allowed the armies of Israel to be defeated, but yet led the people safely to Petra. Now, Petra is found in the biblical region of Bozrah. The name Bozrah means sheep pen or enclosure. Let's see what the prophet Micah says about Bozrah in Micah 2:12. This takes place now, remember this, when Jesus returns. I will surely assemble, O Jacob, all of thee, and all of Israel. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together as sheep of Bozrah, as the flock in the midst of their fold. They shall make a great noise by reason of the multitude of men. So God is going to assemble the entire remnant of Israel in this region, likely in some kind of enclosure or pen of some kind. Maybe a place like Petra. Now let's see what happens once they're there. The one who breaks open will come up before them. They will break out, pass through the gate, and go out of it. Their king will pass before them with the Lord at their lead. Micah 2:13. So Jesus is going to break whatever this enclosure is open, and the remnant of Israel is going to go with him, and he's going to be at the head. Now this could mean a couple of things. One, it could mean that they're in a prison camp of some kind and Jesus breaks them out. Or two, and this is what I'm favoring now in my personal opinion, it could mean that the Israelites are in Petra and have blocked themselves in so that no one can come up that passage, and Jesus unblocks the ravine, frees them in that way, and they all leave together. Now in Isaiah 26, we see this famous passage, come my people, enter your chambers. And Petra is full of chambers and caves. Shut your doors behind you, hide yourself for a little while, until the fury is past. For behold, the Lord is coming out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity, and the earth will disclose the blood shed on it, and no more cover its slain. Isaiah 26, 20 through 21. Now this is universally acknowledged to be a passage about the second coming. But are the chambers that the Jews are hiding in Petra? Well, maybe. But you might say, that was all good and well back in the days of the first century when everyone would attack on land. But now we have airplanes They could bomb Petra into oblivion. And that is true. However, Petra has one more protective feature that many have not counted on. It is likely a Muslim holy site. There is tremendous debate whether Muhammad originally made his holy city, or what he called a holy city, and had the Kaaba, or the Black Cube, originally here in Petra, and only later was it transferred to Mecca. Now, will it be bombed if it's a Muslim holy site? Well, maybe yes, maybe no. But there is another reason it might not be attacked, and we're going to get to that in a second. But first, if we're going to understand this and how Petra might fit into the big picture, we need to back up a couple of years from Jesus' return and his rescue of the Jews. We need to back up to the midpoint of the tribulation. Jesus tells us about what happens at that point in Matthew 24, 15 through 16. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, so he's telling us, we'll learn about this in Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. In the book of Daniel, we're told that the abomination happens at the midpoint of the 70th week, or what some call the tribulation. And at that moment, all those in Judea are to flee to the mountains, according to Jesus, to get out of Dodge, so to speak. Actually, to get out of Jerusalem as quickly as possible. Jesus is very clear that he who is on the housetop is not to go down to take anything out of his house, and he who is in the field is not to go back to get his clothes. They will be traveling light. He adds, but woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days. He also says to pray that your flight may not be in winter on the Sabbath, for then there will be great tribulation, and has not been since the beginning of the world, until this time, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh, no human flesh, would be saved but for the sake of the elect. Those days will be shortened. Matthew 24, 17 through 22. Okay, so there's going to be this mass exodus out of Jerusalem and Judea when the man of sin sits in the temple of God and declares himself to be God. That's the abomination of desolation. Everyone who sees this event and knows that the Antichrist really isn't God at all is going to realize they're in for a really bad time, and they're going to run for their lives to the mountains. And there won't be much time. Jesus is pretty clear. There isn't time to even go into your house and get a change of clothes. He warns that pregnant and nursing mothers might not have time to escape because of their babies that are going to slow them down. And he asks every single generation, from the first century when he gave these instructions till now, to pray that this won't happen in winter, so snow or ice don't slow people down, and not on a Sabbath, so Jews who are observant Jews don't clog the streets by walking and not driving on that day. So that doesn't slow people down. Jesus spent multiple verses discussing how fast this group needs to get out of Jerusalem. Now, Revelation 12, 13 to 14 speaks of this same escape, but in more symbolic terms. And when the dragon, who we know is Satan, saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. And that is Israel, or the New Jerusalem. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she is to be nourished for time, times, and half a time. That's the 3.5 years remaining in the 70th week of Daniel, or the tribulation. So we learn a little bit more from this passage than we learned from Jesus. We see that the remnant who is escaping from Satan is given help in order to escape. 2 wings of the great eagle were given to it so that they could fly into the wilderness. Now, this is a quote from Exodus 19:4, where God envisioned himself as the wings of this eagle. in helping Israel to escape from Pharaoh, in that case in the Exodus. And this time, he helps Israel escape from the Antichrist, from Satan. We also learn even more about this escape. The serpent poured water like a river out of its mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured out of its mouth. Revelations 12:15-16. So Satan isn't just going to let this group escape. He pursues them. The water is likely an army. But notice, the land itself swallows them up. Is this an earthquake that eliminates them, as it did back in the days of Korah? Well, that's a pretty good guess. That's what I'm thinking it is. So Israel ends up in the place where she is to be nourished. What is that place? Well, we aren't told exactly, but let's do a little thinking about this. Outside of the place, the safe place, Jesus said there's going to be great tribulation, such as the world has not seen, nor has ever been, nor ever will be till that time. Zechariah refers to this time of great tribulation in which 2/3 of Israel will die and only 1/3 will manage to escape. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, says the Lord, that 2/3 of it shall be cut off and die, but 1/3 shall be left in it. I will bring the 1/3 through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, this is my people. Zechariah 13:8-9. During World War II, about 60% of the Jews in Europe died. But in the coming Great Tribulation, the death toll is going to be even higher. So it will be worse than World War II and the Holocaust. But the remnant is being protected from that. And those people who are in Judea are going to flee to the mountains and get away. Now, which direction are they going to flee? Are they going to flee south to Egypt? In Isaiah 19, we learn that the Antichrist assumes power in Egypt. Are they going to flee west? No, probably not, because the Mediterranean Sea is there. Are they going to be able to flee north to Lebanon and Syria, maybe Turkey? No, there are going to be armies coming down from the north. So the only direction that this remnant can go is east into Jordan. Now you're probably thinking, hey, come on. How can that be? Won't the Antichrist control the whole world at that time? And the answer is a surprising no. If we look at Daniel 11, about the rise of the Antichrist, here's what we read. And he shall come into countries, and shall overflow and pass through. He shall come into the glorious land, that's Israel, and tens of thousands shall fall. But these shall be delivered out of his hand, Edom and Moab and the main parts of the Ammonites. Daniel 11:40-41. Now, all three of these last places are in modern Jordan. In fact, Amman is the capital city. Isn't that interesting? Because Edom was where we started this whole video, and Petra was the original capital of Edom. So Daniel is saying that the only country surrounding the nation of Israel that's not going to be in the hands of the Antichrist at that time is Jordan. So the only direction the remnant of Israel will be able to flee is into Jordan, east and south. The safest place for them to flee would potentially be the rock city of Petra. Now Josephus writes that when the Babylonians attacked Israel, some Jews fled to Petra. He also said that during the siege of Jerusalem, when Titus came down with 3 legions of soldiers, some Jews fled there as well. Petra is a site where Jews have fled historically. It's 175 miles south of Jerusalem. Let's look at a map of this region, because if this is true, we can trace the route these Israelis will take to escape. They would come out of Judea and take Route 1 east toward the Jordan River and the Dead Sea. Notice that Route 1 ends. And although it would be easier to just head down the main route, and head south along the western side of the Dead Sea, they would still be in Israel. So it's also possible they try to head directly east when Route 1 ends and take that small desert road toward Jordan, which is immediately across the King Abdullah Bridge. Maybe this desert region is where the ground swallows up Satan's army. You know, the one that he sends after the escapees? Now, that's just speculation on my part, but it seems kind of likely to me. Then, once in Jordan and relatively safe, they would head south on Route 40 to try to reach Basra and the city of Petra. Once there, perhaps they would wall themselves in by blocking that ravine. Is this the place, then, where God nourishes them for 1,260 days? Possibly. How is God going to do that? Well, he fed Elijah with ravens. He fed the Israelites in the desert with manna for 40 years. I don't think God is limited in how he can do it. But we know he will do it because Revelation 12 tells us he will. So that gets them into Petra. And after that, we know at the end, when Jesus returns, he's going to break them out, as we saw in Micah 2. What happens after that? In Isaiah 63, we see that upon the second coming, Jesus is walking on the earth, and catch this, from Edom and Basra, with a great throng of people. This is obviously after he breaks them out. Who is this coming from Edom, from Basra, with crimson-stained garments? Who is this robed in splendor, marching in the greatness of his strength? It is I, proclaiming vindication, mighty to save. In this verse, we see the two areas we've been speaking about: Edom, which is the nation founded by Jacob's brother Esau, which is south of Israel, in northern Saudi Arabia and southern Jordan, and Basra, a town and a region in Edom where Petra is. The main character in this verse, of course, is wearing crimson or blood-stained garments, and they are splendid or majestic in some translations. Everyone believes this is Jesus, the only one mighty to save. But notice, he is proclaiming vindication and righteousness, that those who were persecuted were righteous all along and correct, and now he's vindicated them, and he has saved them by their faith. Really, really interesting stuff. Next we read, "Why are your clothes red and your garments like the one who treads the winepress? I have trodden the winepress alone, and no one from the nations was with me. I trampled them in my anger and trod them down in my fury. Their blood splattered my garments, and all my clothes were stained. For the day of vengeance was in my heart, and the year of my redemption had come." Isaiah 63, 2-4. So once Jesus releases the remnant, he's going to bring some smackdown on those who persecuted the Israelites. Some serious smackdown. And where is Jesus headed with this throng of people? The remnant of Israel. He's likely headed back to Jerusalem. Look at Psalm 68, which we believe describes this procession. "O God, when you went out before your people, when you marched through the wilderness, the earth quaked, the heavens poured down rain, your flock found a dwelling in it. In your goodness, O God, you provided for the needy. Your procession is seen, O God, the procession of my God, my King, into the sanctuary." That tells us where he's headed, for the temple. "The singers in front, the musicians last. Between them, virgins playing tambourines. Bless God in the great congregation, the Lord, O you who are of Israel's fountain. There is Benjamin, the least of them, in the lead, the princes of Judah in the throng, the princes of Zebulun, the princes of Naphtali." Psalm 68, 7-27. So Jesus and this mighty throng are headed to Jerusalem and the temple. Now we know from Ezekiel that Jesus and the throng enter through the eastern or golden gate. Now that gate is sealed, and there is a Muslim graveyard right in front of it to prevent the Jewish Messiah from entering it, because if he walks on the graveyard, he's defiled. And they know he won't want to do that. So what happens then? Click right here to keep watching and find out. But the Bible is explicit what happens to the Eastern Gate, and it is absolutely amazing. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.